to schedule the business of the Senate. Subject to further directions by the SBC on that day, the Senate passed one to Standing Order number 24, 5, and 6 of the Senate will resume debate on the motion on the address of His Excellency the President on the state of the nation, if the same will not have been concluded today. The Senate will also consider business that will not be concluded today and any other business, including bills for which, following the judgment of the High Court in Constitutional Petition number 284 of 2019, the resolution process contemplated under Article 110(3) of the Constitution was completed by both Speakers of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, with respect to bills, I wish to inform the Senate that the Senate Business Committee resolved to comply with the judgment given by the High Court in Constitutional Petition of number 284 of 2019, and thus far 10 bills are in the process of undergoing republication with a view to conform to Article 110(3) of the Constitution. The 10 bills, Speaker, are 1, the Natural Resources Benefits Sharing Bill, Senate Bill of 31 of 2018, the Startup Bill, Senate Bills number 16 of 2020, the County Hall of Fame, Senate Bills number 39 of 2018, the Persons with Disability Amendment Bill, Senate Bills 15 of 2020, the County Tourism Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2019, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2019, the Care and Protection of Older Members of Society Bill, Senate Bill number 17 of 2018, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 9 of 2019, the Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2020, and number 10, the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 32 of 2018. I continue to urge for patience and understanding as the Office of the Speaker and the Senate leadership engages our counterparts in the National Assembly to fast-track the process of regularizing the bills accordingly, and the Office of the Clerk for facilitating the republication process. Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge committees to use the available opportunity on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays to expeditiously consider pending business, including 58 petitions pending before various standing committees, and table reports pursuant to the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I hereby lay the statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order.
I just continue.
Order number 8, motion, debate on the presidential address to Parliament, day 1.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that pursuant to Standing Order 24-6, the thanks of the Senate be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered on Thursday, 12th November 2020, and further the Senate notes the following reports submitted to by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of Articles 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 17th November 2020. 1, the 7th State of the Nation Address by His Excellency the President, delivered at a special sitting of Parliament on Thursday, the 12th November 2020. 2, the 7th Annual Report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. 3, the 7th Annual Report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. 4, the summary of the 7th Annual Report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. 5, the Annual Report to Parliament on the state of the nation of national security. 6, the report on the ease of doing business, reform milestones 2014-2020. And 7, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Consolidated Annual Report for the financial years 2017-18, 2018-19, and 2019-20. Mr. Speaker, I am cognizant of the fact that our time is limited and that more members would like to share in this. So as I move this motion, Speaker, I'll try and limit the use of my time, and so that I can remain, I can have some time to leave some time to other members. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear that the address of the His Excellency the President to the nation on the state of the nation was delayed for a few months because of our situation, the COVID-19 pandemic. That has led to unprecedented loss of lives, global economic slowdown, and postponement of a lot of things and activities in our country. Mr. Speaker, it's the World Health Organization that brought this to our notice on the 30th of January 2020. And so, as we battle through the things that the President said and he shared, I'd like to put a lot of emphasis, Speaker, on the effects of the pandemic in this State of the Nation address. Because for the first time, Mr. Speaker, we had a nationwide curfew since independence during this time. For the first time, we had restrictions of movement into and out of most of our counties, a shutdown of learning institutions, a ban on the public and social gatherings, restrictions on a number of passengers, and a cutoff in terms of flights and international, especially international flights. We closed our borders. Our health institutions, Mr. Speaker, had issues. We could not handle this pandemic. Mr. Speaker, it's unfair, of course, unfortunate that under this time, under COVID, we lost a very big number of our people. The country lost over 1,200 people. And then we have had to adjust quite a bit, Speaker, so that every day we hear of very big numbers of losses. And you can see that, Mr. Speaker, that the President's speech committed so many pages on this issue of the pandemic before moving even to other issues. And all I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that we as members of the Senate can take the lead because we represent counties and we are defenders of devolution. To make it very clear to our people, Mr. Speaker, that this pandemic is so serious. I was pleased to hear today Senator Mutula Jr. saying that some of these things that we do, like in public gatherings, the feeding of people and so on, we may need to curtail them because some of those very basic things that we do normally are no longer normal. We should not take them normally. I think we should just be able to even reduce the numbers of public appearances and meetings. The Speaker, we must not, these are the words of the President, and I just want to quote that as I leave that section. He says, we must not succumb to COVID fatigue. We must not backtrack from our vigilant fight against this pandemic. On our part as leaders, our stamina for discipline must not diminish. These are the words of the President to show how serious the matter is and how we as leaders must. We must know the way, go the way, and show the way, to quote what he said. And I think we can do it within our counties, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me not dwell so much on a matter that is so serious, and yet I know that colleagues will dwell on that matter for long. What is important, Mr. Speaker, is that this speech that the President gave us on Thursday is been divided into sections. And for each section, Speaker, there is a report that has been laid on the table of the Senate today. And so I hope, Mr. Speaker, that members will have an opportunity to look at that report, at those reports that today we have placed on the table. And these reports include, Mr. Speaker, apart from the speech itself, there's an annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. Mr. Speaker, this is one thing, an area where I would hope that our governors would have a look and take seriously the issue of governance. We are losing people to this pandemic and many other misfortunes because of a problem of governance within our counties. And I think that as the Senate, again, holding the governors to account and counties to account, we must focus on that particular issue, that particular report. The report is on measures taken and progress achieved in not only realizing our values, national values, but also principles of governance. The other report, Mr. Speaker, which is been tabled, is the progress made in fulfilling international obligations by the government of Kenya. Another report, which is there, Speaker, is our state of national security. And so when we look at all those reports put together, which is an obligation under the law for the President to point out, I would like basically to summarize, Mr. Speaker, that we have begun a journey, Mr. Speaker, under very difficult circumstances in our economy. It has become very difficult even for us in our security, that we must begin to think about how we as Kenyans have shared values. We must therefore begin to think about our value, our shared values and national values. We don't have one school that teaches how we become Kenyan, but these conditions have brought us together. We have our national anthem, which has become a prayer that would bring us together. And now we have, Mr. Speaker, a situation where we are getting into a constitutional review period, thinking that we can bring our people to one shared value and shared prosperity. And so as you read the document, Speaker, apart from enlisting so many things that have been done by this government, the state of our security is very important. I was very pleased to know that the President stated it, that the state of our national security is strong. And he said that our homeland is secure. And, Mr. Speaker, there are just a few issues that come with that, and I hope that our borders, as we've had, are well protected and manned. He said, in his words, that it is secure, our homeland is secure. Mr. Speaker, we have our international boundaries. I come from where some of those boundaries, and I know we've lived along the Uganda border now for the last. Oh, okay. Mr. Speaker, and I know that our borders are strong. There are parts of the borders which need more attention, of course. We have fought terrorism, and Mr. Speaker, the security of this country, we hope, will remain strong. We have, in the area of unity, inclusivity, and peace, Mr. Speaker, what we hope through the Building Bridges initiative is for us to congratulate the President and the former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, for their handshake and for the Building Bridges initiative. Because, Mr. Speaker, the only way we can begin to look at ourselves, move away from, I don't know what happens, but move away from the old issue of imperial presidency, the issue of a winner-take-all, an issue where we didn't know what happens after elections, so that every 5 years, Mr. Speaker, we had conflicts. We had, every 5 years, we would have clashes. Every 5 years, we would have lose another 1 or 2 years repairing the consequences of our own elections. And yet we have claimed to be a democracy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this new initiative hopes to cure that, hopes to cure that, hopes to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that in a leadership that is in our Constitution, a leadership will include a very wide variety, very wide a number and a varied representations from various parties and various parts of our country, so that, Mr. Speaker, we have a well-represented leadership in this country. It also proposes, Mr. Speaker, as we know, that devolution is very important. And under these BBI proposals, as we know, Mr. Speaker, the counties are getting what I would say is a minimum of 35% of the resources going to the counties. Mr. Speaker, we can do better than that. And I think that the future is bright for our counties. The only thing that we can say here, Mr. Speaker, that if you manage to propose and actualize a 35% transfer of resources to our counties, we must therefore have a strong Senate, Mr. Speaker, a Senate that can oversight these funds, and also a legislature that does not need to be cowed, a legislature that can be bold enough to speak up against misuse of resources, Mr. Speaker. For that reason, Mr. Speaker, I am a great supporter of a stronger Senate, a Senate which is an upper house, but a Senate also which has the teeth to bite, Mr. Speaker. And now, Mr. Speaker, I also want to say in conclusion that the speech by His Excellency the President gives hope to us, Mr. Speaker, in this country. The hope comes, Mr. Speaker, from the final words that he said. Speaking, Mr. Speaker, like Moses of old, and speaking, Mr. Speaker, like Martin Luther King Jr. In his days in leading the African Americans. The Speaker, our President has said in conclusion, he has been to the mountaintop and he can see where we are going, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you see what the President proposes for us, what he can see from where he is, from his vantage point, and this speech is giving us some hope. Because like Moses in the Bible, he said on top of Mount Nebo, he says this is what the future looks like. One, a Kenya where no one will ascend to an office, a public office, a high public office on account of their tribe. Mr. Speaker, that's very important for us. That's what BBI proposes. A Kenya where no capable person will wallow in poverty because of poor governance. This is on our shoulders, Mr. Speaker. A Kenya where our potential as people will be exploited, where our potential as our people will be exploited for the greatness of our nation. Again, Mr. Speaker, as leaders, this is on our shoulders to make sure that we prepare the young people of this country so that we can actually have a nation whose potential is exploited for the greatness of this great nation. And Mr. Speaker, finally, a Kenya where we will all share equitably in the prosperity of our nation. And Mr. Speaker, as aptly as the President reminds us, the world is not ours to keep. We hold it in trust for our future generations. I want to say the same thing about our country. Mr. Speaker, this country is entrusted to us. We hold it in trust for the future generations. Our counties, all 47 of them, Mr. Speaker, we hold them in trust. And Mr. Speaker, being the privileged people to have the opportunity to serve, I want to commend this speech to the Senate, and Mr. Speaker, come together with the reports that have been, which have been tabled today, Mr. Speaker, that the President did not do this just because he's out of duty, but it's a very well thought speech, Mr. Speaker, commending. And Mr. Speaker, so that I don't just leave this issue, the particular motions that are urgent, Mr. Speaker, have been listed there. The President asks us that we better have time to look at these motions, especially the National Aviation Management Bill, also the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill, Business Bill number 2 of 2020, and proposed legislation on the administration of referenda, which are all within our scope of work, that we can also, Mr. Speaker, deal with that. Mr. Speaker, with these very few remarks, again, I commend this speech to you, and also that we can solve our problems, Mr. Speaker, as a parliament without having a lot of animosity. It was a request of His Excellency the President that some of the things that we have pending between the two houses can be resolved without necessarily having to show the public that we have differences. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm appealing to both houses, the speakers of the two houses, that we better get quickly as possible the opportunities, Mr. Speaker, to resolve what is outstanding, especially since we have been directed also by our courts. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wish to move and ask the whip of the minority, the Honorable Senator for Makueni, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., to second. I thank you.
Yes, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. The Majority Leader should have disclosed that I'm doing this on behalf of Senator Orengo, so that it's not mistaken that I've grown too big for myself. But Speaker, Speaker, there's no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that the President was right, that this country is bigger than its citizens and is bigger than everybody else. There's no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that this country has gone through many divisive elections. There's no doubt that this country is facing a big pandemic which has affected the way we are doing business. Mr. Speaker, it was good to hear that the schools will reopen, Mr. Speaker, but it also is of great concern that as the second wave goes on, the question of our children going back to school should be thought about very carefully, because now we know that in Baringo and many other places, including coast region, our children in school are facing COVID, and some of them have to be isolated. We hope that as we go along, this part of the reopening of schools is going to be carefully thought about so that our children do not face the same problems. Mr. Speaker, the President also mentioned that the ongoing disputes in Ethiopia, the ongoing disputes in Tanzania are things that we should not be ignored. I hope that our Committee of Foreign Affairs is going to say something about it, because it's a matter that we should commend, and something that we should say or recommend certain issues to be dealt with, because if there is insecurity in Ethiopia, there is going to be insecurity in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I was happy to hear, and the Majority Leader has mentioned, that the President said he is the proverbial Moses. He has gone to the top of the mountain. For those like the Chair and Majority Leader of the members who profess to the Christian faith, it's actually significant that the President is saying, just like Moses on the way to Jordan, that there will be somebody else. It was significant that while he's building bridges and he has gone on top of the mountain, and like proverbial Moses, he will leave the work to somebody else to continue doing. Because in the building bridges, the President, in some cases, the people who are fighting the cause of the building bridges have said that he wants to build a bridge and continue holding the posts of the bridge. But he has said, by being Moses and being on top of the mountain, that in itself, from my own interpretation, and allow me to say so, that the president is going to hand over power when the time comes. That is very significant for purposes of building bridges. Secondly, and I'm talking to Senator Cheriot, because he belongs to the tribe of the Doubting Thomases. The person who went on top of the mountain found very doubtful people at the bottom of the mountain. Those people had created idols of gold. They were worshipping snakes, and that is the reason why Moses got upset. So for the Doubting Thomases,
They are saying, Senator Mutula, that was not Mount Nebo.
yes.
You are confusing.
Sinai.
You are confusing. You are confusing the mountains.
Well, is that what Cheriot was saying? I thought he was doubting. But what I'm saying significantly, Speaker, that even on Mount Sinai, when Moses came down, is he found the children of Israel wanted to go back. And this is very significant in the journey of building bridges. I've said this before, and I've said this to him, and Senator Wetangula can confirm, that this country needs an election where the president is elected and the person who is disputing agrees that he has lost. But even if he doesn't agree he has lost, he has been given 30 days in the Building Bridges initiative to prove of the allegations of loss. It's important. And I've quoted the example of Brazil, and I hope Kenya can get to the place where Brazil is. And the chair, Cheriot, who is also a Doubting Thomas in this game, that a presidential election can end within 2 hours. 30 days is a country of too much doubt, that we doubt ourselves so much that we must give 30 days to determine a presidential election. The most important thing, and because we have come from a history of post-election violence, is to have a country where we move on. Just like Joe Biden and Trump. Trump is president, Biden is president-elect, he's waiting to take over, and the country has moved on.
Senator Pareno, what's your intervention?
Oh.
Speaker, if I could give information. We were on a delegation of this House with Senator Mutula and Senator Cherargei to Brazil, where we were actually shown that you can do an election and within 2 hours, and it was practical there. We even voted at some point that you can actually have results within 2 hours after finishing. And Senator Cheriot was then the head of delegation, Senator Cherargei, sorry, was then the head of delegation when we were given that particular information.
It's very important information, particularly to the former chairman of Legal Affairs.
What's your point of order, Senator Nderitu?
Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering, she said they even voted. Senator Pareno, but from my objective, because I'm describing the person who have just finished talking, it goes without saying. So when she said they voted, what does that mean? In Brazil, Madam Speaker.
Senator Pareno.
Mr. Speaker, it was a mock exercise that we were taken through as a committee.
Okay, proceed, Senator Mutula.
Yes, that's good information, that we actually had a demonstration of a machine which is not connected to any network. Brazil has 107 million voters registered biometrically, and their election results are transmitted within 2 hours, 7 o'clock. That's the country we should be aspiring to, not a country where we are prepared for election disputes and threatening people that if you don't win, then you won't have a country. That is the sort of country that I'm looking forward to, where the sovereign is the sovereign. If the sovereign elects person X, then we should have peace and confidence that our institutions can deliver those sorts of things. Mr. Speaker, I thought Majority Leader that in addressing the address by the President, we would say that in building bridges between ourselves and the National Assembly, we would say that in terms of international obligations which are supposed to go to the National Assembly, that the Senate should have a say and a bite on the question of international obligations of the state, so that when we are asking Speaker Lusaka and Speaker Muturi to have a handshake, we should also have a handshake where, when the President addresses the nation, we can say something about it, because the current Constitution just doesn't say anything about the Senate. We're only supposed to appreciate the speech. It's not enough. So therefore, Speaker Lusaka, since you're on the seat, we are looking forward to the day when yourself and Speaker Muturi will shake hands so that Article 110/3, subclause 3, can be put into effect. Mr. Speaker, and just like the Majority Leader said, I'm looking forward to this Senate vetting the CJ. I'm looking forward to the Senate vetting the DCJ. I'm looking forward to a Senate vetting the Auditor General. I'm looking forward to a Senate voting the non-members of the Cabinet. That is the sort of Senate we are looking at. And it's not too much to ask, because this Senate has produced the best legislators. This Senate can produce other legislators. But we also want to welcome those legislators and other leaders, including governors, who have no other place to go other than come to the Senate.
What's your point of order, Senator Kangata? Wear your mask, Senator.
Yeah, but Mr. Speaker, sir, I plead with you, I be allowed to speak for now without this, but I wouldn't be near the mic if you allow me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have looked at the order paper of today. I have seen we are now at number 8. Mr. Speaker, sir, I come from Murang'a County, where we produce tea. We are the most important producers of tea. I have seen.
What's your point of order?
Allow me to.
What's
my
your point
point
of
of order is, can you rearrange, Mr. Speaker, sir, the order paper so that we allow tea, the tea report.
You are out of order, Senator.
The tea report. The tea report.
Senator Kangata. Senator Kangata. Okay. It's on a point of order.
Allow me.
What's your point of order?
Just
Senator?
1 point. I am rising. Allow me to be heard. On behalf of the tea farmers of Kenya, on behalf of the tea farmers of Kenya, we want this debate at number 9 to be heard.
Order.
The tea farmers of Kenya deserve to be heard.
Order, Senator Kangata. What's your point of order, Senator Wetangula? Just a minute.
Mr. Speaker, you should apply the rules of this House strictly. If a member of leadership of this House interrupts debate in a manner that displays ignorance of our standing orders, then it's unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, under our standing orders, our precedents and usage, once a presidential address speech is tabled, a motion is moved, is debated and interrupted until you finish it. And it's listed for 3 consecutive days. Each member here has a right to speak to this speech, and we have a lot to speak. And the chief whip who comes from the president's backyard should be the last person to make this unsolicited, uncalled for, and unhelpful interruption of debate.
Okay, order, members, order, members, order, members, members. Honorables, order, senators. Order. Honorable Senators, we are discussing a very important item. And this is unprecedented. When, just like Senator Wetangula said, the motion has been moved, it's being seconded, and debate will be there. So for 3 days. So when you introduce matters of tea, when we are discussing a presidential speech, you are completely out of order, and I rule that Senator Mutula Kilonzo proceed. Continue. Proceed. Leader of majority, what's your point of order?
You know, Speaker, please. Speaker, you know, our standing order number 116 can apply here. Speaker, this is not a very serious way of acting. Mr. Speaker, if you look at our standing order, a senator is disorderly, Mr. Speaker, if A, continues to create disorder or creates disorder, but 2, knowingly raises a false point of order, but C, unnecessarily interrupts proceedings and consults in a disruptive manner. I don't know whom that describes, Mr. Speaker, but if we were to follow our standing orders, Mr. Speaker, and begin to apply them, this is a much more serious matter to be disrupted. In fact, it's provided for, Mr. Speaker. So I'd like for you, Mr. Speaker, to make this very serious.
I have already given a ruling, and I want to urge senators who are here, don't address the media out there or the audience. Address this House and keep to the rules of the House. Senator Mutula Kilonzo, continue. What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, just additionally, because, I mean, those of us who've been in this House or in Parliament, especially in a different House, it's very disconcerting, Mr. Speaker, whenever you're on your feet and senators are shouting, including the whip and senior members. You know, Mr. Speaker, even if we may not agree with what you're saying, we must respect this House. Mr. Speaker, that same standing order the leader of majority has read out talks about the action taken when there's disorderly conduct. This is not a market. This is not even a county assembly or whatever other platform. When we are sitting here and we're hearing people shouting when you're on your feet, Mr. Speaker, let us respect this House. Kindly, when that happens again, please, you know, just let's name one person and expel them so that there can be order in this House and let everybody be heard properly, Mr. Speaker. It's very, very disgusting and disappointing.
I think you are raising an important point, and I especially want to urge the leadership of the House that you're supposed to provide leadership. If you are not, if you have no followers, then you are not a leader, you are just taking a walk. But I want you to provide leadership in the House. I would not expect that to come from the leaders of this House. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. I thought Senator Kangata wanted to disrupt me so that I lose train of thought. But I haven't. Mr. Speaker, I was speaking about the building bridges, and Senator Majority Leader spoke about this at length, that it's important that in the building of bridges, the Senate is recognized as the house that brings this country together. And therefore, my token to this, and in reference to the speech by His Excellency the President, it's important, Mr. Speaker, that the drafters and the people and the team that is looking at this document find a consensus where devolution, Mr. Speaker, is given prominence. The House that deals with it is us. As I wind up, Mr. Speaker, I want to wind up with a comment by Albert Einstein. It's important for us because we are in leadership. For purposes of the pandemic, I've said, Mr. Speaker, that my own family is bereaved, and I hope that leaders can take the cue in their political gatherings, in their political speeches, that we must take the lead because people are following what we are doing, but unfortunately, they are losing their relatives. Last, Mr. Speaker, the peace of this country cannot be taken for granted. And we cannot take it for granted that we are attempting to amend a constitution during a time of peace. 2010 was an opportunity. We amended the constitution at a time of peace. This is also an opportunity to amend the constitution at a time of peace. And the question of how we do it is also important. And as leaders, we must offer advice. We must also bring the country together in building of these bridges and amending the constitution. Not everybody is going to be on board. Not everybody is going to agree. We must be prepared that there are people who will disagree. But we must agree, bearing in mind that we have one country. We must disagree and agree that we can disagree, because that is the democracy we have. Somebody wrote somewhere recently that freedom is like toothpaste. You remove it, you can't put it back. We have had the freedom we have enjoyed because we can speak freely about these issues. Let's not make it a do or die. Let's not make it as if we all have to agree. Some will disagree. Even in the preaching of the gospel, some disagreed. The gospel is still going on. But Albert Einstein said something about peace. He said, peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, law, order, of government. And that is the country we want to build. A country that understands that once we have government, we have justice, we have law, we have order. And I hope that the document that will be unveiled on Thursday is going to follow the precedents, and is going to follow the views that have been given to those committees. Of having justice, peace, law, order. But most importantly, that even when you disagree with people, the least you can do is give them a listening ear. It's called audi alterem partem in Latin. I support. Thank you. I second.
Okay, honorable senators, I now propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 24-6, the thanks of the Senate be recorded for the exposition of the public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered on Thursday, 12th November 2020, and further that the Senate notes the following reports submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of Articles 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 17th November 2020. 1. The seventh State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President, delivered at a special sitting of Parliament on Thursday, 12th November 2020. 2. The seventh annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. 3. The seventh annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. 4. The summary of the seventh annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. 5. The annual report to Parliament on the state of national security. 6. The report on the ease of doing business reform milestones 2014-2020. And 7. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Consolidated Annual Report for the financial years 2017-2018, 2018-2019, and 2019-2020. I'll now allow debate. I know the time allowed is 15 for every member, but if we can limit to about 5 so that we give as many people an opportunity. 10 minutes, okay. Senator Mohamud.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this speech of the President on the State of the Nation delivered on November 12, 2020, last Thursday. Speaker, sir, this speech The statement, as mentioned, was given 6 months late because of the issues which are in our country. So, Speaker, first let me say this. This address was made to Parliament. Parliament, which is made of two houses. I have issue with the writers of the speech because in the document you will see a lot of reference to Mr. Speaker, National Assembly. The two speakers were sitting there, but severally the President was referring to Mr. Speaker. Severally the President was saying this house. I think he was addressing two houses. I think the speech writers in the President's office are not used to the bicameral parliament that we have. This is where we are, because the confusion we have in this country is that people still think the Parliament is National Assembly. And in fact, they made the President read a speech, which if you look at it, a lot of sentences are actually addressing one house, yet he was addressing the whole house, both houses. So, Speaker, this speech was given at a time when this country was facing a lot of challenges. The President in his speech at paragraph 7, they say that the state of the nation is strong, resilient, brimming with the promise of an ever brighter future. Very optimistic, very futuristic. But the fact is that this country is facing a lot of challenges. Challenges which are caused by COVID-19, a challenge which since March this year has really ravaged the whole world, Kenya included. So, Speaker, as we speak today, the challenges of COVID have not gone away. In fact, a second wave have come, and we are facing serious challenges which must be addressed seriously. We are now losing our medical staff, our frontline workers on this COVID issue, and in fact, it's getting serious. 2 days ago, I was watching the news that our doctors are giving notice of strike because of the risk they think that they are being exposed to. So, Speaker, COVID-19 has contributed to the crippling of our economy, an economy which has been savaged by, first of all, by a crippling debt, a debt burden which is which has never been seen before, coupled with the problems that we have because there's no activities going on in the economy. In fact, this has contributed to a lot of, slowdown in our economy. So COVID issues has contributed to the slowdown of our economy. Our education sector is not spared. Our children have been at home since April this year. We are now talking of opening schools, and when we are just ready to open the schools, the issue of COVID second wave has started again. So, Speaker, the preparedness of this country in dealing with COVID is actually questionable. We must, as Kenyans, take this serious moment where we are dealing with COVID-19 and take it seriously. It is true at the beginning that we have, as I stated in the speech of the President, that we really did put a lot of measures in place, but the measures were relaxed. So, Mr. Speaker, I still think that this matter is very serious, and it must be dealt with given the chance, the resilience it deserves. Mr. Speaker, our schools are open. Quite a number of more will be open in January. Our children have been tested positive. Today, you see Baringo the other day, and today you are seeing somewhere in Cliffy, a school where about 30 plus students were diagnosed with COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter, and we must address it. Mr. Speaker, our economy is not doing well, because of course, the slowdown which was caused by COVID-19. And in fact, all this needs to be tackled. Mr. Speaker, on the state of security of this country, yes, it's true that the challenges that were posed by Al-Shabaab actually slowed down tremendously. I thank the state for the good job they have done on this matter. But the security challenges which are actually posed by the regional conflict that is going on in Ethiopia, the conflict or even the issues which are in our good neighbor Tanzania, I think these are challenges that Kenya must take seriously. Kenya has been known as an island of peace in the region, which is full of turmoil over the years. We took part in a lot of peacekeeping in countries like Sudan, Somalia. And now it's our chance to be able to maybe intervene and see what we can do with our neighbors in Ethiopia, because that war is a serious one that actually can affect the region terribly. Mr. Speaker, the issue of maybe our other neighbors, Somalia, I think is stabilizing. I think we must be keen to make sure we stabilize our region. Mr. Speaker, The political atmosphere in the country is also one thing, Mr. Speaker. I think building bridge initiative, good as the initiative is very good, but I think we are not doing very well. I think we are not doing well on that front. We must build bridges that are firm, bridges that cannot actually be washed away by very shallow rivers, bridges that can actually affirm, the unity of this country as required. Mr. Speaker, the President severally referred in his speech as the constitutional moment. Yes, constitutional moment, but constitution must be made by all of us. We have no problem, actually, I personally have no problem with the Building Bridge Initiative as the document as issued, but there are issues in that document that must be agreed. And this has been voiced by a lot of Kenyans, the church, religious leaders, other leaders, Parliament. The Senate, where we are today, actually has been totally given a blackout. And in fact, as we change the architecture of Parliament, when we say Parliament will have even cabinets, when there will be marriage between Parliament and the executive in the proposal, then we need an arbiter elsewhere that the Senate can be able to vet those ministers and to put the government on check, because the government is going to actually, the way the proposal is done, is going to go to bed with Parliament, the executive. So, Speaker, there are issues that need to be addressed because this constitution belongs to all Kenyans. I think the enthusiasm with which the handshake came, the handshake was very good. I think it brought peace in this country. But I think that enthusiasm must be translated to a positive approach for this country, so this country can actually have a constitution which can take us all on board. I have seen the document, we have read it very well, but I think the issues that have been raised by various stakeholders, my pastoralist backyard included, must be taken account because, we are part of this country, and this country, all of us are part of this country, and this country must have is not take it or leave it. It is for everybody. So I think the issue that the President said is a vision for this country. Let that vision be a united Kenya, where every Kenyan sees himself. The constitution we have today, 2010, is a very progressive constitution. If any improvement is done on that constitution, we're happy. But anything which negates the gains in that particular constitution, personally, I will not support. So, Speaker, sir, I think the speech of the President came at in a very difficult times. The President has tried his best to address the state of the nation and the security of the nation, but the challenges are there. This challenge must be dealt with. We cannot blindfold ourselves and forget about it. So this must be addressed so that, our farmers, our school children, our health workers, our nation, our youth, and actually the totality of Kenya live in peace and survive this pandemic of COVID, which is threatening the very life and the very fabric of society. So, Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Olekina.
Madam Speaker, I thank you. I rise to make a few comments in our role as a Senate in recording our thanks to the speech of the national address by His Excellency the President. Madam Speaker, during the last year's State of the Nation address, the President used one phrase, no turning back. And one of the things that caught me last April was a fight on corruption. And I want to quote the last year's speech as I make my brief comment on this year's State of the Nation address. Madam Speaker, from the onset, I must state that I was a bit disappointed. I don't know whether to blame the speech writers or just maybe the COVID pandemic took us by surprise such that this State of the Nation address was not, in my view, something to write home about. Madam Speaker, in the last State of the Nation address, the President stated as follows: no turning back on the war against corruption, as it is a just war, a war to prevent misuse of public resources for selfish interest by those we have entrusted to manage them. Madam Speaker, I expected that during his 7th State of the Nation address, which is something that we're all looking forward to, the President will give us a status update with clear milestones and deliverables on the war of corruption. This, Madam Speaker, I did not hear from the President. Madam Speaker, the president spoke a lot on the issues of not turning back during the last address. But clearly, in his address, although the speechwriters could have indicated to some extent the fight on COVID, I do not believe that they gave it the sensitivity that it required. Madam Speaker, we've lost doctors. We've lost our men and women who have been working to try and ensure that this country continue to benefit from a good healthcare system. But Madam Speaker, I don't know whether the speechwriters were not concerned about the human sensitivity, that they did not give it the emphasis that it required. Maybe then later we will read in the summary or the report which has been submitted. But I was waiting to hear tough measures which will be put to ensure that we fight this pandemic, which is really decimating our cultures. Madam Speaker, it is quite clear that our economy has not done well. I expected that during the State of the Nation address, the President will come up with drastic measures on how to ensure that the banking sector is their tight leash on money and lend money to the public. Madam Speaker, I expected to hear that at least the Treasury bill's interest would be dropped so that commercial banks can be able to now start working with the public. There's no money circulating in this country. And I would hope that at least the President would have given us a status update on what